The Dismal Swamp is an environment that has hazardous conditions associated with it. The heat, you got poisonous snakes and mosquitoes come out at certain times of the year and it's unbearable. But when you think about some of the torture the enslaved people endured, I think if most of us were living during that day and we had an option to go in the swamp and live freely, I think a lot of us would take that option.
From the 17th century until the Civil War, escaped slaves, known as Maroons, found refuge in the Great Dismal Swamp. Located on the border of Virginia and North Carolina, the swamp was wild and inhospitable. Nevertheless, it was there that runaways created self-sufficient communities, almost entirely cut off from the outside world. For the past 10 years, archaeologist Dan Sayers from American University has been studying these settlements.
Part of what I did was develop this sort of research program called the Great Dismal Swamp Landscape Study. Most of my focus has been on archaeological discovery of sites out in the swamp, as well as historical research, and then of course trying to understand it. Before we started our research, there was a sense people lived in the swamp for a variety of reasons, but we really wanted to go in the swamp and find remnants of their lives out there. And sure enough, we've been able to look at several sites associated with several of these different groups.
Probably a 1790 to 1825 or 30 nail that we found in one of the resistance community settlements.
I'm sure the population went up and down, but very strong potential for any given moment for thousands of people that went out in the Great Dismal and formed these multi-generational communities. It was a radical form of resistance in a good way.
The runaways who escaped slavery risked everything to be free, even if it meant living in the harsh environment of the swamp. One former slave who briefly lived in the swamp was a man named Moses Grandy.
I've done family genealogy research in which I've uncovered a slave narrative by Moses Grandy, who I believe is my great-great-grandfather's uncle. That's Edmund Grandy, my great-great-grandfather's headstone, who was born in 1827. He was a waterman and a boatsman on the Dismal Swamp Canal, which was being hand-dug. And he describes very vividly in the slave narrative how they were treated, what they endured, how they were tortured. If you had that kind of experience and you had an opportunity to come out to the swamp and live freely under, challenging conditions, you're gonna have a hard time getting them out of there. The idea of Africans setting up communities and being in charge of their destiny in the swamp, I don't want people to ever forget this history.